In thinking about how we're going to approach today, I suppose context is always important, and the joke about having a disaster dashboard on your homepage might seem pretty extraordinary to people in this room, but we come from a part of the world where natural disasters are actually a very significant and quite serious threat to our communities. And in Queensland legislation, local councils have a legislative responsibility to act as local disaster managers and are at the forefront of responding to things like cyclones, to bushfires, to large-scale flooding events, and the occasional crocodile attack, perhaps, or a big scary spider in the bathroom. So it's important that our websites reflect the need of communities, and you'll see that theme on the way through. So hands up if you've heard of Queensland. Most people. Key cities in our state include places like Cairns. Heard of Cairns? Yeah. Gold Coast, Brisbane. Brisbane's the capital. That's home for Brett and myself. So Brett and I are from this organisation called the Local Government Association of Queensland, the LGAQ. For 123 years, we've been representing and supporting the interests of our councils in Queensland. There are 77 local authorities ranging from Brisbane City Council, which is our largest council and the largest council in the Southern Hemisphere, which is sort of a bit of a proxy in terms of size and population to Birmingham here in the UK, through to some of the world's smallest, most remote councils with populations of less than a couple hundred people, through to some councils that are by geography some of the largest in the world, and some of them have land masses which will just sort of blow your mind. What does the LGAQ do for our members? Well, we do two big things. We act as an advocacy organisation representing the collective voice of our 77 local councils in our engagements with state and federal governments, with other stakeholders to essentially influence the way in which local government is able to go about doing its business. And we have a fairly significant policy agenda that we progress. And we have a team of people back at our office that spend their days wandering the halls of our federal parliaments and state parliaments, trying to influence government around a whole range of different matters. The other part of the business, which is where Brett and I work, is about the day-to-day support for Queensland councils, the tools, advice, guidance, support and assistance that they need to get on with delivering for their local communities. This is what Queensland looks like in the middle. A lot of nothing, I suppose, but home to a significant amount of economic activity, a lot of agriculture, and home to some very impressive Australians. As I said, 77 councils. We have nearly 4.7 million residents that we look after, covering 1.8 million square kilometres of the Earth's surface and nearly 7,000 kilometres of coastline. This is a photo from up in the Gulf of Carpentaria. This is a very famous natural phenomenon, a cloud, a rolling cloud. It's called the morning glory. It only needs a very certain set of atmospheric circumstances to exist, but people travel the world to actually see this formation. As a sector, we employ over 40,000 individuals covering 245 different professions and quite a lot of money. We have a few roads in our state as well. In fact, local government in Queensland has a responsibility for maintaining local roads. We have 153,000 kilometres of them that we manage, over 2,800 bridges, and we have about the best part of $43 billion worth of assets tied up in the road network. We also, perhaps unusually for the UK, as local government in Queensland, also have responsibility in most parts for water and wastewater management as well. So our councils manage over 500 or nearly 600 water and wastewater treatment facilities. We spend a fair bit of money keeping those working to keep communities able to access safe and healthy drinking water. And we have nearly 3.4 million individual connections to residents that we manage on behalf as well. This is a photo from Brisbane. This is actually not far from our office where we are. This is a disused powerhouse in the bottom left-hand corner, owned and operated by the Brisbane City Council as like an arts institution now. We look after 1.5 million rateable properties. We pick up every week over 2.5 million rubbish bins, and we also look after 321 local libraries. And if you ever come to Queensland and you are thirsty, you should come here for a beer. This is the famous Birdsville pub, located in the furthest most corner of Queensland. If you were to drive there, you're probably looking at the best part of 3 days from Brisbane, through some of the most remote and interesting landscapes you could possibly imagine. But when you get there, I can guarantee the beer is cold and the hospitality is unprecedented. And a lot of people will make the journey out that way. We are a large sector. We spend the best part of $12 billion a year delivering services to our residents, and we try and do a very good job. But our challenges are no different to your challenges. And I think that's one of the key messages that we're going to sort of talk to you today about. We've been delivering websites in local government for quite some time. We started way back in sort of year 2000. The first websites we provided were powered by a thing called Lotus Notes, and we've been through various iterations. But we're here today to talk specifically about our most recent jump, and that's our jump to Jadu. And on that score, I'll hand over to my colleague, Brett.
Thank you, Glenn. Good morning, everyone. I wasn't going to bring this up, but Suraj has been mentioning Brexit every single day since we've been here, and I thought I would share that we're actually no different. The only interesting part in terms of what's known as Quexit was that this wasn't the choice of Queenslanders. It was, in fact, the rest of the country wanting to break away from Queensland, which is quite funny. But this week for us is all about coming to the UK to understand both the similarities and, in fact, the differences between local government here in the United Kingdom and councils in Queensland. As Glenn mentioned, we are a membership body. We do a lot of things for different councils. He mentioned that we do a lot around governance, policy, but we also do day-to-day advice, and that's the work that we're doing with Jadu in recent times has been centred around the provision of services and digital services to councils. This is who we are. We're an organisation of about 100 spread across those different functions, serving the interests of local government in Queensland. We like to have a lot of fun. This picture might suggest why the rest of Australia want to break away from us, but we don't want to forget our colonial roots, so we do dress up like this from time to time. In terms of what we do, I think we've explained it a little bit. Probably the best way to actually encapsulate the depth and breadth of what local government in Queensland does is to probably show you a video of different councils doing different things, which really relates to what they do day to day. I've got a little video here. It comes from a campaign that we've run in recent times known as Better Councils, Better Communities. That campaign is focused on two key things affecting the sector right now. Firstly, being financial sustainability, which is a story which would be very familiar to most of you in the room. Local government in Queensland is challenged by financial sustainability. There is an imperative for councils to manage assets more effectively and efficiently, but there's also the need to look at just general business delivery and the services of local government and how that can be done more efficiently as well. The second driver is really community perceptions of local government. It's hard to love your council sometimes, but we think it is in fact possible. Local governments employ locals. They're not just the political arm of a community. They're locals, they're residents, they're people that do everyday jobs. And we're really proud of the work that we do in supporting the notion of councils represent community. And with that, we think there's a really strong campaign to improve the perceptions and the image of local government in Queensland. So I'll play you this little clip. I hope it works.
Queenslanders have said better councils make better communities.
The kids love the parks.
The gallery is a magic place. And councils are a vital employer throughout Queensland.
By the time we're finished, we'll have the best roads in the country.
I love working here because of the joy it brings to people's faces.
Our recycling is great for the environment.
I love the free Wi-Fi in the park.
Councils transform this area and everyone loves it.
Better councils make better communities.
So yeah, in terms of what we do and what councils do more broadly, it is broad, it's varied, but councils more and more in Queensland today are putting more of an emphasis on customer service, putting customers at the heart of what they do. What we've looked at here in recent days with each council is the fact that that is very similar to your to your aspiration here in the United Kingdom. Every council that we've met with so far has had this concept of improved customer service, putting the customer at the heart of what they do, and at the heart of service redesign and the delivery of services more broadly. For us, in terms of what we do and what my team does, I'm the manager of digital member services. We have a fairly large footprint in Queensland in terms of delivering websites. As Glen mentioned, we've been doing that since 2001 across a range of different technologies. And our footprint today is across 41 councils. So we manage websites on behalf of 41 of the 77 councils. That's close to 120 websites that we manage. So it's not just corporate sites, but that's intranets, that's sites relating to tourism activity, events, theatres, galleries, anything that can be wrapped up and considered a local government business is kind of encapsulated in the numbers there of the websites that we provide. We have done in the last probably 18 months close to 35 refreshes, and we also operate a fairly large support arm and have close to 4,000 customer interactions per annum. This is kind of a little bit of a visual representation of that footprint. So the councils there in pink are the councils that we currently manage. So it's a fairly large geography. We have a fairly large spend in terms of support and training. So we don't just provide virtual support, we actually do face-to-face support as well and training. And that's all about ensuring that councils are well equipped to manage content and manage the website themselves. At times there are areas where they need support, and of course LGAQ is on hand to do that work as well. This is kind of the broad set professional services that we operate or we deliver to councils here, well, not here, but in Australia and Queensland. And that spans everything from digital strategy through to design and UX, training and support, a lot of emphasis on social media, this notion of channel shift that we talk about, and we've been talking about a little bit today, is front of mind for councils in Queensland as well. We also provide a lot of key services around media and communications. So that's working not only with marketing and communications departments, but working with the political arm of local government and too in terms of media management. So it's a fairly broad church. We do a lot, and we see it more as a growing area of need for our councils in Queensland. As you know, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of disruption, there's a lot of messages. And it's LGAQ's role in terms of supporting councils and how to best manage that and how we best manage delivering information and transaction services with councils online is very, very much important to what we do. About two years ago, we made a decision to review the model of our web services. As Glen mentioned, since 2001, we've been providing websites to councils in Queensland. As I said, that's been across a range of technologies. And we were doing a lot of that work ourselves. The review was really about looking at how we could potentially do it differently. Our technology was at end of life, so it was an opportune moment for us to assess what we were doing, but also give some key consideration to what we should be doing. We went through a fairly extensive and comprehensive member engagement program. I was out on the road for close to 3 months, probably meeting with every single council who was a user or was utilising our current service. And we really started to talk to them about what are the needs of your community, what are the needs of your council, and what do you actually want to be doing with, how do you want to manage your interactions with your residents. And it kind of really boiled down to they wanted about 4 really key things. They wanted to focus on customer expectations. So it was no longer about having a website or providing services that justified people's own role within a council. I'm sure many of you would have gone from the dark old days where a website reflected what your departments were doing, not what customers were wanting to see from the council. That was very much the story for Queensland local government. We realised that providing a product or a platform really wasn't enough, it wasn't sufficient. What we actually needed to do was educate them and advise them on how to best use those products. So provide them with expertise, provide them with guidance, educate them on the best way they could leverage that technology for better community outcomes. There was this notion or this desire to not do it alone. So networking, collaboration, working across regions, working across council borders was something that councils wanted to do. And I suppose that lends itself to what we're here today really doing. It's about networking, it's about learning from each other, and it's about saying, hey, if something's done somewhere else, maybe we can do it similar, or maybe there's a story and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. And that was very important for our councils as well. There was also the idea of syndicated content and a service model to support that. So while councils are somewhat similar, they're not homogenous. We are dealing with 77 different local authorities. There's a lot of functions that are similar. There's a lot of things that are different, but we thought we could actually we could use the similarities as a catalyst to do something different. So where councils were running a campaign, whether it be around being water wise or being responsible around the utilisation of assets, or whether it be a campaign, whether it be Australia Day or being water wise, we thought there was a real role for the LGAQ in terms of providing assets that then could be shared across the network. And we've started to do that work to some extent now. After that review and that extensive member engagement program, we looked at what the model for Queensland councils should look like. And I guess it spans a number of things. It's about individuals wanting to interact with councils in real time, do it on their terms. So the idea of self-service was very, very important to us. The idea of mediated self-service was also evident. So where people wanted to interact with the council differently, but we're not quite sure how to do that. And I was very pleased from my meeting with Broxbourne yesterday that we're actually seeing this notion of customer service not only be reflected in the technology that they're utilising, but actually comes through into their built environment as well. So reimagining how a local government reception area can look, how do you actually have kiosks for self-service, and how do you provide an opportunity for people within the community to be trained to do it on their own and do it at a time that suits them. There was also the need for continued support services that were provided by the LGAQ, and we definitely wanted to maintain that role as well. But more broadly, it was around about how can councils have a better personalised experience with their residents, and the idea of having an account, the idea of being able to register your dog or search for a library book online. These were all things that they thought, this should be doable. This should be things that we can do. If you can buy something online from a major retailer, if you can conduct your banking online, why shouldn't you be able to do that with your interaction or the business that you conduct with your local council? And that was very much a theme that we looked at in terms of reviewing our web services. We looked far and wide, but we actually ended up finding that the solution or the provider that we might work with was actually only about 30 minutes down the road. A council called Redland City Council was already a Jadu customer, and we went and spoke with them around their digital transformation journey. The fella in the photo here, John Guana, will probably laugh at this. He was an adopter of Jadu technology. He was very pivotal to the project in Redland City Council, and he's actually, in fact, come across to the LGAQ and is our acting manager for communications at the moment. So I wanted to give a plug to John because without our engagement with him and his help in terms of looking at what Jadu was doing with Redland City Council, we may not actually be here today. So then we extended it. We then went and spoke to Jadu directly. We wanted to learn a little bit more about who Jadu were as a company, what the ethos of the company was, how they were providing solutions to local government. And we really found that the products and the services that provided really aligned to those four key areas that I mentioned before. They had a desire to work with local authorities around improved self-service. There was a desire to think about digital transformation, not just as technology, but as a mindset and a behaviour shift. And they were saying all the things that we wanted to hear. It wasn't long before we started working through the practicalities of a relationship with Jadu that we then became partners. So for those of you that were at the Birmingham Academy last year, we announced the partnership with Jadu probably a matter of weeks just before Glen came to the United Kingdom and delivered an address on what the future would look like. And we were very proud of the progress that we've made today, and I'll speak a little bit about that now. So taking 100 councils from one web platform to another is some undertaking. It provides, I think we got to know every single person in spacecraft from Luke tearing his hair out as the project manager, through to Dave Gudgeon and Mike Govia looking at our hosting and support arrangements, and we had others that were engaged in that process now. So that's that image on the right-hand side there. That's kind of the project workflow to take one site from our current provider across to Jadu. And we've done that about 40 times already since last November. We're not just moving councils across, so there's options that are provided to councils who are making the jump to Jadu. Many councils had gone through a fairly significant refresh only months before the announcement was made, so some of them are just migrating like for like, but taking advantage of the additional feature set through Jadu, while others are also taking the opportunity to migrate and look at their UI and UX and review their service design on the way through. Content's a massive thing for councils in Queensland. Obviously, accessibility and plain English standards are at the front of mind, and we are helping councils with the task of reviewing content and looking at the way in which they migrate content, or perhaps reconsider the way in which that content is pitched. So that's a little bit about the migration strategy. We had Suraj, who joined us last year in Noosa he was in Australia for a week with us doing what we're doing here. A really good opportunity for councils who in Queensland to understand who Jadu are, the software, how the software enables councils to transform the way they provide services to their community. And I think our councils really appreciated Suraj and David's visits to them to actually start to unpack what was possible through the migration. As I mentioned, our first site went live late last year. So after we bedded down the migration process and what was needed, we had our first site go live, which was the Northern Peninsula Area Regional Council. It's one of the most remote councils in Australia. It's situated right at the top of Cape York, so right at the tip of Australia, and really underpins what the value of our partnership with Jadu is all about. Our view is that it doesn't matter if you're the largest council in Queensland or the smallest, everyone should have access to world-leading technology, and we're very proud of the fact that we're able to facilitate that with this partnership. 41 councils, or it was 39 councils at the time, that are now going to be utilising Jadu technology. As you can see, to requote Suraj, we're making a bit of a dent in the universe. We're lighting up Queensland, and we're providing councils with the opportunity to consider how they best provide public services to their constituents. We've picked up a few new councils on the way through. Logan City Council, one of the largest councils in Australia, probably the third or fourth largest council in Queensland, home to about 400,000 residents, a highly multicultural local government area. There's a large number of migrant settlement communities, and the aspiration with Logan City Council is to ensure that regardless of age, qualification, or ability, that they should be able to be provided with services that meet their needs and meet their needs when they need them. So this is probably our flagship project. We've been working with Logan now for 9 months to get them ready for go live in just over a month's time. A similar approach to what we're seeing here in the United Kingdom in terms of the website project being tasked to their customer service arm, and looking at how they transform their website from what it is today, which is really around providing information about council and turning it into a customer service hub, essentially. So making use of the CMS, but also looking at how they can best utilise XFP to reduce the amount of paper transactions. And as Suraj said earlier in his keynote, the desire to move away from manually processing data and having that information rekeyed is front of mind for Logan. They want to be driving efficiency, but they also want to use their staff in a more useful and a meaningful way. I've got a video here.
You may have heard that our council will shortly be getting a new corporate website. This is an exciting project which has a lot of great benefits for our council and our community. Why did we need a new website? Our current website has been in operation for 10 years, A little while ago, we surveyed over 1,000 members of the community to see what they thought of the site. Overall, they agreed it had served us well, but they noted that things were a little hard to find and wasn't as user-friendly as it could be. They also wanted to continue to do more things online. When we sat down to do a review, we found that the site was comparable to an overfull cupboard. So we started to see what needed to come out and what could be better presented. As part of this task, we went to market to see what other systems might be available, and we ended up getting a new cupboard. The new site allows us to start again and build the website to work better across all of our services and information. A big part of the project was to review every single piece of content on the current site. This is over 1,000 pages and nearly 6,000 attached documents. Once that was done, we started to rewrite the content to meet both the requirements of the website content, accessibility guidelines, as well as plain English standards. This will ensure our content is written in a way that is concise, understandable, and accessible for all our customers and the community. We have also simplified the layout of the site, updated our My Property tool, and are developing web chat functionality. We are upgrading our virtual assistant, Lara, and rebuilding Council's disaster management dashboard. Go live for the new site is at the end of the year, and once done, we'll start on a few more updates and improvements, including the careers section, the art gallery, a booking system for the events, and a CityWorks, the single view of potential disruptions and impacts on the community. Stay tuned for more details to come. If you have any questions, please contact the Digital Customer Experience team at digitalcx@logan.qld.gov.au.
So a similar story to probably some of the work that you're doing here. We are working with councils in a number of different areas around web services. So it's not just about looking at councils' corporate sites and how we do those better. But as mentioned in that video, we're also working with councils around their disaster management responsibilities and providing dashboards in that space as well. A new area of work for us is really working around councils around how they provide news and information to their communities. In Queensland, we've seen a massive decline in regional media outlets and coverage of news in local communities, and that's really robbing communities and residents of information that serves them well. Probably like most of your communities here in the United Kingdom, councils are very much the source of much news to newspapers and media outlets, and we believe there's a real role for councils in that space as well. We're looking at a new way in which we actually cut out the middleman and we start to publish information ourselves. We be the reporters, we know the audience, and we provide that in a way that's meaningful to the community, and we control our channels in a much more effective and efficient way. There's been a little bit of talk about that online. Some media outlets are a little bit unhappy with that approach, but councils are taking it upon themselves to look at how they provide better services and better information to their community. You can read about that, and if you've got any questions, maybe we can talk about that in the break. We're also hoping that after our migration effort, and indeed in the coming weeks, we really believe in the notion of the Jadu library. It's something that really excites us. We think there's something that we think it's a concept that we can not only utilise for our councils in Queensland, but we hope to contribute to that library as well. And in time that we're sharing information, we're sharing service patterns, we're sharing forms. And we're really embracing the notion of sharing for better public outcome. We do think that it's a massive part of the work that we need to do in the next 12 months, and we're working with the team at Jadu and David in particular on how we best facilitate that to bring greater value for all Jadu users. We've already contributed a little bit to that. Noosa Council was the first contributor in Australia, providing their digital strategy up online at the launch of the library last year. But as I said, we're hoping to provide a lot more information and guidance through that channel in the coming months. That's pretty much it. We've got a big 12 months ahead. It's been a big 12 months, but we've got lots of big plans. We've got our first Jadu Academy that will be taking place next month in Queensland. We're very much excited to welcoming Kirstine and some of the other members of Jadu across to Australia to help us set that up. We hope to have some of our friends from interstate who are Jadu users also attend. And we also want to make sure that people who are undertaking the migration effort have an understanding of what to do next for those users that are already transferred. We've got the introduction of CXM, which is massive. It's a major part of our visit here in the UK. to understand how we best leverage CXM for our councils. And then finally, more integrations in terms of the work that we're doing. So we'd like to thank everyone who's met with us already. We're really excited to be here. If you want to have a chat to us, we'll be here all day. And I hope everyone has a great event. Thank you.